How's it going, guys?
Hello, Sam.
How are
Hello,
you?
Saki. Oh, good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for jumping on, man.
Yeah, of course. How was the running yesterday?
It was late.
Very
It
late,
was,
yeah.
it was very late. Yeah.
I was thinking about this. I'm thinking like me only bicycle or sometimes working out at the gym for running. No way. 3 miles.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't. It's the loop around my neighborhood, which is good. I only have one road that goes around, so it's my only option. It's either out and back or all the way around. So no
Mm-hmm.
side streets here.
That's nice.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that, folks. Not sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. Jay, how's it going? Jalen, how's it going? Mark, what's happening, everybody?
What up, man? Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Yes, sir. I was a little slacking on my marketing today, and I didn't get this out enough, it looks like. So, would you guys be willing to just post a little thing somewhere to get some people to join us if possible? I've got like 200 comments on my thing from last week, and it looks like I've dropped the ball on adding for this week. I know that a lot of people benefit from this, so I want to get it out there. Oh man.
Looks like not everybody wants to make money.
That's what it looks like. That is what it looks like, my friend. That's all right. We're gonna get you guys caught up to speed and on track for what we're doing, and then it won't matter. They can catch up.
Yeah.
Throwing something in the chat first to throw into Facebook or
Yeah, yeah. If you just let me drop the link in here and I'll drop the data that I want. Sorry, my let me look at my email. It's been a it's been a wild week. Right, Jay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the truth.
that's the truth. It's been wild. All right. Yeah, if you guys just want to steal from the email that I sent out, that'll be the easiest, and I'll just give you the link that is for registration. Real quick, if you just want to do that, I'd be super grateful. I have been full throttle all day. All right. So what we'll end up doing is most likely, even if people don't join us, folks, we're gonna end up I'll be recording this, so we'll just send out the recording to everyone. So I'm not too concerned about everyone missing this stuff, but um just wanted to try to get a chance to get it out there for anyone else who missed it. My messenger doesn't work. All right. We're gonna just get started, guys. I'm gonna record this and we'll go from there. Um, cool. All right, Jay, I'm gonna highlight us and we'll rock and roll. So, guys, today the goal is um, we're gonna talk. Jay is here. Jay, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, and then we'll talk about the homework and stuff. But we're gonna talk about a few different things, go over the homework from last time, talk about what we're going to talk about today. And this is going to be we have five parts moving forward from here on out. And today is specifically um, about the begin, like just going over the whole acquisition process, as well as going over the first stage, and that's finding the deals and choosing Buybox and all that kind of stuff. So Jay and I and Marley are all partnering on a SaaS company right now, and we're pretty excited because Jay's background is he'll introduce himself, but he's got IT background and technology. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself because I will butcher it because I don't know enough technical data. But go for it, Jay. Thanks for being on here.
Oh, yes, sir. So my name's like Shane said, Jay Holder. By trade, I'm a chief information security officer and a director of information technology. So I've worked from desktop all the way through networking, server development. I currently run an Azure team. So I do a lot of that. Then on the other side, I own 4 real estate investment businesses. They're not, each one of them not buying property, but it's all tied to buying real estate and things like that. So happy to be here.
Cool. Thank you for being on here, Jay. And just a quick introduction to myself as well. Marley and myself have a company called Creative Roots Holdings. We are in the process of purchasing businesses as well as large multifamilies. And being that multifamilies and businesses are so aligned in terms of it's just a multifamily is a large business, and so is this. When you acquire one of those, you acquire a business, and there's really no difference in the sense of what happens there, for the most part. So. My background is in education. I've spent, I don't know, 13 years teaching. I think longer than that. I was teaching when I was in like high school to summer camps and stuff. But I spent all my time selling my classes, selling myself, and basically I taught elective classes from digital media, electronics, through architecture and CAD and all those fun courses. But they were all elective courses, so my job depended on enrollment. So I have a lot of experience doing that and convincing high school kids that they want to do this fun thing over here. And through that, I found, certain things that I'm really good at. Jay has a very specific thing he's really good at. He's good at systems and technology and things. I'm really good at just getting things moving and getting started. So we're combining those together. Marley's got a really great operations background as well, and she's done M&As. Jay's done 15 M&As recently as well, throughout his career. And so we're mixing our skill sets together and creating a team so that we can go ahead and start sourcing deals, buying deals, and then taking them all down and then updating in operations and getting them up to speed so that they can start cash flowing the way that they deserve to be. So today we're going to talk about deal sourcing and the buy box. What I mean by that is, where are you finding your deals and what kind of deals are you looking for? And specifically, we're going to talk about the deals that we are looking for, so you get an idea of what that looks like. I'm going to pull up my Art Buy Box. If you received the email, there was a link to our Buy Box in there that talks about the different pieces. And we'll talk about those, like we'll break down each piece of that. Like a SaaS company is a software company, and we'll talk about all the different nuances. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the stories. Like Jay has done a deal from start to finish that he's going to talk about and tell you like the process that went through that, like where this deal came from, how the negotiations went, what happened towards the end, and then what does it look like afterwards. For, I believe for his companies, it was a bolt-on or a roll-up, meaning that it was either added on as a new service or it was another business of the same kind that they acquired, and just for either their skills, technology, or their clients, and they rolled that up into their business, providing the same service they already provided. So we want to talk about that today. Last week, we assigned homework to everyone. The homework was to fill up your calendar for the next month with different brokers, different CPAs, and anyone who's in the business buying or selling world. And the goal of doing that is filling up your calendar with talking to about 5 people a day. If you're really serious about this, you need to actually be serious about what you're doing. And we didn't tell you to do it last week because we wanted to talk a little bit more about what the process is, right? If you go into those meetings last week, you're not going to know what the heck to ask, which is fine, right? Because you can even say that. Like a lot of times when you start out, if you've ever done cold calling, if you've ever done, talk to an agent, real estate agent or a broker or anything, the first thing you're allowed to say is, I'm new to this, so forgive me if I have stuff wrong, right? That's an okay thing to say. And a lot of us get concerned that we're supposed to have it perfect, when in reality, it's everyone starts somewhere, and the goal is to show that growth rapidly and learn from what you're talking about. So last week's homework was to get a Calendly, I recommended, so you can share that out to people who you're going to have have meetings with so that you can easily schedule those meetings. Calendly allows you to set time constraints and give you time in between meetings so you can take notes or whatever it is. And you can just keep sharing that link out and find creative ways to get people to fill up that calendar. Then, and as you filled up that calendar, having 30 days worth of people to talk to, you know exactly what you're going to do. When you wake up in the morning, I'm going to go to my W-2, let's say, and after my W-2, I'm going to be talking to this X amount of people, and I know exactly where I'm going to be by the end of the day and who I've talked to and what I'm going to talk about. And that really does help your mindset know, okay, I'm not just going to flounder and like, oh, maybe I can talk to this person. Oh, they're ready for a meeting, but it's not, it's in 10 minutes. Oh, well, I've got something else to do. This is set. I move forward and I really get to grasp onto something that's like when you go to school or your W-2, you have a set schedule, right? You 9 to 5 for work, or 7:30 in the morning, and there's classes every 45 minutes, whatever that might be. You want to make sure that a lot of us thrive in more structure than we want to, but our brains are wired that way because we've gone through our lives. Most of us have gone through our lives in that structure, and creating that structure for ourselves allows us to really do what's best. And so today's objective is to figure out where we're getting deals from and what we're actually trying to do, right? I can talk about acquisition process all I want, but until you actually see the stages of the acquisition process, from identifying a deal all the way through closing, you're not really going to know what questions to ask the person next or where to go. And for me, I've done multifamily, but I've not done a business myself. That's why I brought Jay on. Marley couldn't make it tonight, and she's done things by herself. And Jay has had, numerous experiences doing this. So Jay volunteered to come on today and walk us through all those stages of that process. So I wanted to give this floor to Jay for a little while, let you talk about some experiences you've had, Jay, as well as the process and those stages of acquisitions and closing.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, so in my W-2 life, right, we've bought probably 15 different businesses or clinics because I work in the healthcare space. And so like the number one thing that you have to do is you have to do the first pass, right, of due diligence. So you need to be looking at your finances. You need to make sure that you're reading through like the P&L, you're looking at the churn rate, depending on the type of business you're buying, right? So if we were looking at, and this applies to services businesses. So with these, we looked at patient quality, how many patients they actually had. Then we reviewed what the patient index mix was. So what type of clients, right? What type of clients did we have? The big one that we bought was a cancer center. So it was really easy to know what type of clients you had, right? Because you're buying a cancer center. So from there, we looked at treatment types. What types of treatments does this center put out? What are the charges? And forgive me, healthcare is a business. And so it took me a while. I started on the nursing side and went to the business side. And so it took me a while to understand when you start looking at revenue and profit and things. So while I know I'm talking about cancer patients and I feel for them, it is a business, right? So when you're looking at it, you got to make sure you're looking at how much money's coming in, how much money's going out. That's a given, but you've got to look at what that mix is. If you're real heavy in one area, that can be a problem, right? So if you're about a business, for us, if it was only chemo and there was no other treatment, that would be a problem because why are we not doing any of the other treatments? Why are we not getting funds from those treatments, things like that? And so once we got through that first phase of due diligence, we put in an IOI or an LOI, depending on which way you want to go. And what that is that's just either, it's just so a document that says we're interested in making an offer. And then an LOI, I forgot what it stands for, but Shane, what's it stand for, LOI? Letter of intent. Sorry, it's a letter of intent to purchase. And so once you craft that, you just really want to craft that to get in the door. You don't want to necessarily make your full offer in the LOI, right? You want to be as high level as possible, but give them some terms that's going to make the seller want to talk to you. Then that's where you get into the negotiations. You start to ask a few more due diligence questions around churn for services, right? Would be like churn rate, cost of acquisitions, how many current subscribers or clients or patients do you have? And then from there, you get into the contract phase. In the contract phase, I always say get a lawyer to write up if they don't do your initial contract, get them to read the contract on the follow-up before you sign the final I bought it, because you're going to go through revisions throughout the entire purchasing process. As you go through due diligence, you're going to renegotiate, you're going to do all of that. At least you should be. I've never, in the 15 companies we've done M&A with, we've never just bought off of the first contract, because you should find stuff. Like, there's a reason they want to sell it, right? And I know everybody has the story, I want to quit and be with my family, or I want to do this. There's another reason, right? You don't quit a company that's making a lot of money unless you've got other bunny rabbits, as people say, to want to do. And so once you find those, once you've talked and you find out all of that, you go into the phase of the full due diligence. So that's where you should get access to everything. You should be able to talk to employees, which we did. That clinic had 50 employees and we interviewed every one of them. You should be able to get into their technology stack. So we got access to their technology. We were able to go look at every desktop they had. We looked at all the servers they had. We looked at all of their email. We were able to go through their entire stack and see where they were deficient. Then you get to looking into the deep, dark financials. So that's where you get into the full P&L. You get into payroll. If you're buying a company that has payroll, you get into the back taxes and the tax breakdowns, because that's a big one. Like, a lot of people buy on the P&L, but they never ask about the tax. And if that company owes 2 years of back taxes because they're a company and they didn't pay it, and you bought the company, you owe 2 years of back taxes. You got to pay them. And so, we go through all that, and then we get into the final stage, which is the merge, right? We merged them into us. And then that's where you have to come up with the plan of, and for us, it was, do we replace all their equipment, put them all on our equipment, put them all on our system, which, by the way, I was 100% for doing that. We didn't do that. We left them on their own system, and we just made a connection between us and them to where they could talk. And I don't work at that company anymore. I was there for 20 years and I left, but they're still having problems, because I still talk to all the people who work for me. They're still having problems on the technology side. And I think they're actually going to go back to my original plan that I put together. And so, yeah, those are high level. Those are the big things you need to do. So you just got to make sure you're getting their P&Ls, you're breaking down their business, you understand their business, and then know at the end, you got to know what you're going to bring in to run that business. Like, how is it going to be support? Because when you're buying a business, unless you're trying to buy a job, you don't want to buy a job. You want to buy something and then roll that into the next thing and the next thing and build a portfolio.
Love that. And so what I want to do really quickly is, Jay kind of went through that process and talks about some of the things, the nuances you have to worry about and think about. And I want to be very clear and concise about, like, basically there's like 5 stages of this, right? There's the preliminary research stage, right? You've got to figure out what you're going for and why you're going for it. He mentioned that, like, he did the research on what business they're looking to acquire, right? From there, you need to go ahead and identify those businesses. So it's first, you need to know what you're buying and why, and what your criteria is. That's going to be the buy box. We'll talk about that first today, and then we're going to go through all these different parts as we this course goes on, or this like series goes on. And when you think about this, you want to think about this in stages, because that's exactly how it's going to be, right? You've got your initial, I want to identify my buy box. I need to know what I'm doing. From there, it's finding deals, because you're going to look at 100 deals and you might put offers in on 10 or 20 of them. I mean, you're going to look at more than 100, but like 100 sims, and we'll talk about what sims are in one of the next ones. But that's evaluating the deal. So you need all the data coming in from the deal. Once you've talked to a broker, once you've talked to a business owner, you get all them to compile all that data together. Then you're going to do your due diligence on that. You're going to look into it at a high level, right? And say, okay, from what you've given me, this looks promising, right? From that stage, then you put your LOI in, like Jay was saying. Then if that gets accepted, then you go into the true due diligence stage. That due diligence stage, just like if you're doing real estate or anything else, you're doing your research on all of the data, from the back taxes to the revenue to the SDE, which is seller discretionary earning, to the EBITDA. And there's a bunch of different phrases. We'll get into some of that later on. But a lot of times when you get that data, especially from a small business, which is why we focus on a little bit larger businesses, most of them are saying that their cash flow is a lot higher than it really is, because they're confusing cash flow and revenue. And they're thinking cash flow for the business, not cash flow into their pocket. So there's seller's discretionary income. That's what the seller gets to do whatever they want with after all expenses are paid. You've got your net cash flow, you've got your EBITDA, you've got a lot of different pieces of the puzzle. And when you are looking at these deals at the high level versus the due diligence level, there's those different parts that you have to really be aware of. And a lot of people will actually find a CPA if that's what they're experiencing, and they'll do their due diligence that way because they can look at all the financials and everything else. But for Jay and Marley and myself, mostly Jay and Marley, they are really good at looking at this both high level and really deep in because they've done this before and they've done it enough to know that it's not just about those basic numbers. It's like, okay, well, how are the systems working, right? So the business that we're looking at right now, for instance, they've got it's a lifestyle business. So this person is making 700K, 700K a year on a lifestyle business, meaning that he goes into other people's webinars and makes sales in those webinars whenever he wants to go to like Aruba with his family, right? He does not have a system to make sales that are consistent, which is ridiculous because it's a marketing agency. And it's so funny because he could be using his own product to market his own product. So as we look at these, as you look at a business, you have to be able to see what's happening now, what's missing, and how you can grow. If there's no growth potential, then it might not be a business you want to buy, right? Or if the clients, if for due diligence, if their clients are all 80% of their clients is one person or one company that they're serving, and the other 20% are other people, that's not a good balance because you lose that one client, your business goes underwater. So due diligence is a really deep process. And then, you go into the, you have your offer in that's accepted, and you might renegotiate depending on what you find. And then you go to closing. And so at the closing point, it's from then on, it's strategizing the next thing and what's going to happen next. So those are the basic 5 stages. I might not have identified them as the right terminology. We can go back and do that in the next one. But I wanted to give you a basic overview, just like Jay said, there's a flow to all of this, and they all follow the same formula. It does not matter if it's a window washing business or if it's a pooper scooper business. Or if it's, a large C-suite business. Like all of it is the same concept. It's just at different scales and different revenues and different processes. And you really do need people who know what that industry is and what the industry can do in order to focus in and attack it together, right? You can hire that out. You can find people who are operations people that know what they're doing. So you don't really need to know all the pieces of that business, but you do need to know at a holistic level what you're looking at in order before you even start trying to find those businesses. So I'm going to pull up in a second our buy box and talk a little bit about that. Before I do that, I wanted to open up the floor. If anyone have any questions so far about what we're talking about,
Actually, can I make one statement real quick?
please.
What you were talking about finding that expertise, you factor that into your P&L too. Like you got to forecast that. You've got to factor in somebody like the business we're talking about. It's a solopreneur, right? Like he's doing everything. He's got 2 devs and 2 acquisitions managers, right? But they're all virtual. But pretty much everything in the business outside of that, he's doing by himself. And so you've got to factor in like, what do you need to bring in so you're not doing all that work yourself? Because none of us want to do the bookkeeping, right? So we got to know what it's going to cost us to bring in the bookkeeper, or a company to do it, what it's going to cost to bring in somebody to run it day to day once we stabilize it. So when you're going through and you're looking at what he's spending, or the seller is spending or making on SDE, you've got to probably deduct 20% from that to afford people, right? And that's a rough number. Do not say Jay said only 20%. It's just when you look at it, it's a rough number, and you also base it on what the SDE is, right? With the cash flow, what the cash flow is after everything's done. And so for us, I would say it's probably gonna be around 15% of cash flow is what we're gonna end up spending to pay people to do all the work, but it's still cash flow is really good. So when you're doing your numbers, and that's that long-term cash flow number, figure that out. And I just think that helps you get ready when you purchase a business, not to be an employee, to own a business. So
I love that. Thank you, Jay. Yeah, because that's the biggest thing that I think we find. Like I know some people right now, they're going after some type of automotive company, and that automotive company, it's a repair company. And one of the people in the purchasing of the business, they're going to be working in the business because they've got a background in that, which makes sense to an extent, right? For if you're investing in a company versus if you're taking over a company, those are two kind of separate things, just like what Jay said. I don't want a job. Like we know right now that Jay, Marley, and myself are going to spend a good 3 to 6 months working in and on the business at the same time, right? I'm going to be going ahead and doing all the marketing and taking over what David, the owner, was doing to get sales. But we're also going to optimize that by creating evergreen content that's going to go out there and we're going to use our own software that we're purchasing to market our own software to other people. So we're not just going in, I'm not going to be working this for the next 10 years of my life. Like, yeah, we can make $1 million a year if I spent, a few hours here and there, but I don't want to be doing that. Like maybe once in a while when we're all like, yeah, we're going on our company retreat, let's go, jump in and make some sales and we're going to do it again. That's fine, right? But what we want to be doing is we want this to be set up so that our business can run itself. And we want to bring on operations, like Jay said, like you have to, when you pull someone out, if they don't, when you look at the numbers, if they don't add that back in as a line item, then you're not going to be able to replace that person, especially if they're pulling like a $300,000 salary and the business only cash flow is 600 and they're saying it's a net cash flow of 600. Now it's really down to 300 because you've got to hire someone who is at that level of management skills to put back in the business. And that's what people forget and they don't really identify. And Jay, I love how you brought up the back taxes, right? Like thankfully ours is an asset sale. So we're going to be bringing that technology into a business that we're going to start versus the other way around. Mark, what do you got, bud?
Yeah, so talking about that, how important is locality and how important is like the staff you acquire with the business, right? Because I imagine, especially if you don't have knowledge in one or the other area of the business, that you are really dependent on the employees. And if they don't like you because you're not there that often or not so caring like the previous owner or not local or whatever, how important and how do you make sure that they don't go away and then your business has no business anymore, right?
Beautiful question.
Yeah.
Jay, I'm going to let you take that one over. I'm sure you've gone through it a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, locality is important based on cash flow, right? So if you're buying like we're looking at a SaaS company, obviously there's no locale. Like the guy who owns it lives overseas and it's registered overseas. And so the developers are that. But if you're buying, let's say, I have a friend who bought a lawn care business and he doesn't live in Atlanta, but he bought one in Atlanta and it's doing great because what you do is you look at the cash flow and like I said, you look at the talent you need to bring on to run it. They don't even need to know that you own it. Like you could put the general manager in place, have them run it based on the cash flow, make sure you've got your interview processes down, make sure you have a process for running a business that can be plug and play. Now, there's things that have to be modified, but you can literally pick up your system and drop it into any business and it will function. And to me, like your systems, and I don't mean technology, I mean systems. So you've got to make sure you've got your hiring process and interview process down pat. You've got to make sure you've got documentation or how to create standard workflows or what's called SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures. Now, every business doesn't need those, but you do. You need them for certain functions. You need an SOP on how you're going to post jobs. You need an SOP on how you're going to hire. You need an SOP on how you're going to pay. You need to have those outlined basics so that when you step into a company, you implement that right away. One of the things I look at is like you interview the employees and you even see if you even want to keep them. Like you may severance them and get them out, and that may be a good way to get rid of bad employees. But I think if you're going to go further than what you want from your comfort zone is distance, then you definitely need to make sure you know how to hire somebody who can come in and run it. And, you be a true owner. And you may, there may be some sweat equity. You may be going down there for a week or two and hanging out and learning and doing all that. I mean, that's why I said it. For me, it depends on the cash flow. Like if I was going to buy a business at cash flow $100,000 and I had to go to California for a month, I'm not buying it. Like it's not happening because I have a wife and 3 kids. I ain't looking for a month for $100,000. Now, it cash flows $3 million a year. I'll see y'all in a month. Like I'll go out there and I'll do what I need to do.
That's
Uh,
true. Yeah, you got a different motivation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it depends too. And I always tell people, like, don't just look at every business, right? Like, look at businesses that you actually like. Like, I love technology, so I look at SaaS businesses. I do real estate, obviously, so I look at real estate. I don't look at plumbing businesses because I don't want to ever be a plumber, right? Like, doesn't
Yeah.
mean I would own one. Doesn't mean if the right one came across my desk, I wouldn't buy it. But I don't plan to go out and look for them. But I do look all the time for SaaS. I look for bookkeepers, accounting firms. Like, these are things that I know can be used, and I actually am interested in how they can be used. And so that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, for example, a CPA firm, right? All the knowledge is with the people. And so if they go away, your business goes away. That's something I was thinking about a lot. How to make sure that they stay and force them to stay, have contracts in place. I don't know, right? Because if they
Yeah.
go away, then the cash flow is gone as well. I mean, you have your customer database, but nobody who's doing the business. You're screwed.
Yeah. And Mark, I'm gonna kind of tie into that as well. Like there's with the people who I know are operators who come into other businesses and take over, like they've made the mistake of coming in too fast and too hard, right? And
Mm.
that's key. Like you need to really cultivate that relationship, like meet them where they are. If there's 20 employees, you should get to know all 20 of them, right? It may not
Yeah.
be the quickest thing, but like you're getting to know each person, and you're trying to figure out what their goals are, what they want, and where they're going. Because if you don't understand what they need and want, like you might find out that they love the owner and that was the only reason they were there, and they're going to be the worst
Yeah.
employee because they don't like you, or because they're not here for what they want to be there for, and they were just there to help someone out because they felt like they owed them something or whatever it might be. Like if you don't know their true intention, especially employees that are running that business, because if I'm going to find an operator, I would rather find someone in-house if possible that
Mm.
knows the systems, that knows what's going on, that knows the other employees.
Make him a hero. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, like great. You get equity in the deal. You get cash flow equity or whatever that is, and give them bonuses based on performance. And there's so many things you can do to cultivate
Mm.
that without losing the environment that they're in, right? And that's going to take a little bit of work to cultivate it a little bit, but like Jay said, there's systems, right? You systematize everything. Um, and I am not the person to set up systems, but I I guarantee you I'm not that person. But I know I can go into a place and say, guys, this is how we're trying to move forward, and this is what we're trying to do. And not are you with us or are you not, but like how can we make it so it's mutually beneficial? Like, are these people getting paid enough? Are they saying like have they been saying I'm going to quit for the past 4 years? Great. Well, is it because they haven't been getting paid properly, or is it because the owner has been a jerk, or is it because they just don't have no, like, I'm not gonna say loyalty, but is it because they have no interest in being there, and are they going to be a
Mm.
thorn in the side of the business? Great, clear them out, right? Vampires need to leave. So you might even find you go in there and you might find that there's a person that's a bottleneck in the business that's causing loss of revenue, and that person themselves are and you could find someone who's the best salesperson and everyone hates them, so the morale of the company sucks, but they've been making the best sales for the past 10 years. But that doesn't matter. You've got to get rid of the vampire in the world that you're in. So there's a lot of nuance to that, and there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But I mean, for me, it's always going to be what do people need? People are humans. People have emotions. They want to feel valued and loved and accepted, right? We know that we are all these creatures. So as long as you go into it knowing that, as well as being very clear on your goals and your mission without messing up what they're used to, or without abruptly messing up what they're used to, then you're going to be able to do some really great things.
The other thing I would say is look at the type of business you're buying and have a plan just for that. So like if I'm buying a bookkeeping firm, right, and they do bookkeeping, accounting, and all that, and let's say I'm buying them because they have 1,000 clients, I'm gonna be prepared if I walked in there and half the bookkeeping staff quits. Am I going to go find easy bookkeepers? No, but I know a third-party service that I could just pass that clientele to do the books, and
Mm.
we don't miss a beat, right? So, like, obviously, if you're buying an HVAC company and all the HVAC technicians quit, There again, different story. Like that's going to be a lot harder to work with, but know the business you're buying and know like plan for that. That's why you build that due diligence phase, is not just for in looking at the company, but looking at all your internal what ifs. And you should have a list of those. Like Shane talks about the buy box that he's got. And I didn't get that email, Shane, but I'd love to see your buy box.
Yeah,
your
we'll
buy
pull.
box. But have your what ifs too. Have those what ifs of what if everybody walks out? What do I do? What if this happens? And don't make your what ifs like when you're answering your what ifs, don't go to the Armageddon stage of everyone's gonna quit and it's worth 0 and I just bought it. Like the likelihood of that happening is very small unless it's like a husband and wife. They sell, the wife wanted to stay on, then she just quits. Like something like that, right? Like
yeah, the bigger it is, the more chances of success, right?
Absolutely.
And-
Absolutely.
and the type of employees. So like the SaaS company that we're working on, it's two acquisition managers that are account managers. They're not here. They're remote workers. They're like VAs. And it's 2 developers in the country. Like we're going to call them and be like, can we hire another one of y'all? Like, you know somebody else who knows how to do this to help us what we want to do. And the likelihood of losing them is not very high because they just want to get paid. They don't have that loyalty, no, necessarily, I don't think, normally. So
Right.
again, look at that. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So that being said, I'm going to pull up the buy box unless you have anyone else have any other thoughts that they want to ask or questions that they're thinking. Mark, did we answer what you were hoping for?
Oh yeah, I got a lot of more questions, but maybe at the right time then.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, we're gonna jump into the buy box side and we'll talk about that for a bit. But yeah, I think the stuff you're asking is going to be later on in the series, mostly because it's more about the systems that you're going to set up in the business. Right now, we're just focusing on the acquisition side. So it's in very important questions, right? At this stage, it's more of like, if I find something, I'm going to find the right operator to help with the other pieces, right? Instead of trying to force answering all those questions before I get into it, right? So like, for instance, looking at a multifamily, we're still 2 or 3 months out from taking this down. I'm not going to go find a property management company right now because that's a waste of my valuable time. But I know when I get about 3 weeks from closing, you damn well bet I'm going to go find some companies that that can handle what I need to do. But I'm not going to use all my time now. It's like, the projects we look at for when you're building a house, you're not going to go look at the roofing stuff and buy this materials to roof this thing before you build the foundation. So we're building the foundation right now. All right, so I'm going to share this buy box. Let me get this open for everyone. All right, so here is our buy box. So we are looking for 2 different areas of prices. The first one being under 10 million, anything under 10 million. And the reason for this is we have lenders for the 10 million up. Under 10 million, we're looking at more of creative deals. So has to be creative in order for us to get into these. EBITDA, meaning Jay, can you explain what EBITDA, because I know there's EBITDA and there's EBITDA. We don't have to go into full details on that, but can you what does that mean in general?
It's earnings before interest, taxes,
Debt.
and I forgot what the duh means. Hold on.
I think it's debt. Right.
It's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and
Oh, right.
amortization.
Thank you.
So this is when you really look at this, right? This is gross revenue. It's just a fancy way of saying gross revenue. It's what all came in before you start removing everything. What all came in.
Right. And there is revenue. So there's revenue and then there's EBITDA. That I think EBITDA doesn't include debt service or something like that. So there's nuances to each one. So this might not be exactly aligned with what I'm saying right now, but yeah, it's basically gross after a couple of things are taken out, essentially. Revenue is literally the credit cards, the amount that's charged to people's cards, or the amount of money that comes into your account, whether it gets moved around, paid for everything. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. No, I said that wrong. So yeah, you're right. Gross revenue. EBITDA is after the bills have been paid, right? That's before you start taking out the taxes, interest, all that stuff. Sorry, I said that wrong. It's after. That's the difference between revenue and EBITDA.
Cool. Right. So if you have rent is coming out of that for your office, or you know, charges for credit card fees and all that stuff. That's coming out first. That's EBITDA. Revenue is the total gross sales. And the industries that we're looking at right now for ourselves is things that are online and virtual. Anything with AI, we have. I mean, as you all know, AI has taken over. Like you can't really go wrong as long as it's within a market that makes sense. SaaS being software as a service, and that is what Jay, myself, and Marley are currently purchasing. AI, SaaS. It's actually combined together. Then you've got fintech, financial tech, which is there's things like prop tech that's under that. So anything that uses technology to speed up the process for lending, or makes borrowers' process easier to do different things. That's what fintech is. Like, let's say we have a private equity fund that is trying to deploy money, and we have the software that deploys the money and vets the people that they're trying to do. That's what the fintech is. So anytime you go to fill out like a mortgage application online, that's technically a fintech type thing. Sports tech, so pretty much anything in the sports world. Hold on one sec. I've got. Hey, Casey, can you take her to another room? So then we got sports tech, so that's anything in the online virtual tech world. I believe Marley knows more about this than I do. I don't know exactly what the terminology is for that, but I will look it up in a sec. Gaming, so video game. I mean, there's so much out there for the gaming industry, and it's moved so fast. And then marketing, which is kind of what we have all together in the business that we're buying. AI, SaaS, and marketing is what we're looking for right now. And then anything brick and mortar, that would be something like construction businesses, anything that does construction management, GCs, things like that. Home services, that could be cleaning services, that could be lawn care, you know, pool care, etc. And then you've got manufacturing. Manufacturing is one of the highest, what's it called? The highest profit margins, because you are the source of the thing to feed someone else's product, right? So if you're manufacturing something that's a part for an aerospace industry, your part is the starting line for that. Like, you might need raw materials, but other than that, like your part is the starting line for their product. So it's very, very high margins, because you are starting from a raw product and you're doing one step and then it's going out. HVAC, that's another one. Like Jay was saying, he wouldn't do HVAC, plumbing, and electrical most likely. For us, we look at that in two different ways, right? Construction, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical, and home services. All of that ties into a real estate world, which is we're also in. So if I was going to go into the Atlanta market, we're going to look into, if we acquire properties in that area, I'm going to go ahead and bolt on these businesses to my current business so that I can utilize that and just keep the money in house. Just like if I'm going to hire someone for my personal business, I'm going to hire my family first, because I want that money to stay in house in order to do that as best possible. And so when we look for these businesses, again, they have to have the revenue, which means that if they're getting this revenue, they're going to have a team. There's not going to be a one-person show. And that's really, really important when you're buying a business, just like you were saying, Mark. You can't just take on a small team, because the risk of loss or whatever is big. But when you bring on a team that has 15 technicians, now you've at least got statistics and numbers and like you can understand where that's going to go. And so those are the pieces of what we're looking at right now in the brick and mortar, this side of things, under 10 million. Employees, here's exactly it is, right? So there has to be ideally there has to be a strong number two that could take over. So let's say you had like our SaaS company, for instance, there is someone running operations that is doing sales and operations and intakes, other than the seller, right? But the seller is doing all the sales and the marketing on his own and being the face of that business. So this person might not step up into that position, but at least they know the operation, so they can take over that side. And then the age of it is 5 years or more. We can get away with 3 years sometimes, depending on the actual the speed at which it's been growing, but usually we're sticking to 5 or more. For the 10 million or more, and this sounds a little bit like, whoa, you know, that's a big business. We have lenders that are more willing to play in this world than they are in the smaller world, because when you look at a business, there are about 4 or 5 stages of, I mean, 3 to 5, I can't remember exactly, stages of businesses. There's 0 to 1 million, 1 million to 10, and then 10 to 100, and then there's 100 and plus, right? And those stages are, you run businesses very, very different in each stage. So the likelihood of a business, a startup lasting is very low. I think it's like 1 in 10 or some crazy number. It might even be worse statistics than that, but it's very low of them surviving. Something, if you're in the 1 to 10 million range, you've got a higher chance. If it's 3 years or more, it's a higher chance of surviving. And then 10 million and up, now you're working in a whole different echelon. Now you're bringing on a C-suite of employers and people who are at the top level running that business. So it's a very different type of business, and that's why we like to focus on those as well. So these can be something creative or financed. We can, purchase it with, cash or whatever it might be. The EBITDA must be at least 40% of the asking price, right? So if the EBITDA is 8, the purchase price has to be 20 or more. Or shouldn't be more than 20, sorry, should be 20 or less. Sorry, I'm covering up what I'm trying to say. The revenue has to be 1 million or higher. We would love more than 10 million for a $10 million business. That's fantastic, but obviously that's a pretty awesome, multiplier. And you might hear the word multiple, meaning that the value of the business revenue or the EBITDA or the cash flow, depending on what you're calculating. And Jay, what do you normally calculate when you do multiple?
You can go revenue. Most people go revenue.
Mhm.
I like the ones that do it based on cash flow, but
Yeah.
revenue is usually where it's at. It all comes out in the wash, but yeah, again, don't take the first one either.
Yeah. And so there's right. So when you're talking about smaller businesses, you have to do cash flow. You can't talk about revenue as your multiple. It's not possible, because a lot of times you're spending so much on your systems and your people, because it's all grassroots, that it doesn't make sense. So what Jay was saying is it's better when you're talking about cash flow versus revenue, but when you're talking about a large business, revenue is a factor in a different way than a small business, because there's a lot of systems that are already in place in these large businesses. In terms of industry, for what we're looking for in the larger side of things, we are looking for, again, AI, SaaS, all the same things at the top here, right? Anything that we said before. Brick and mortar, it's specifically agriculture, ESG, which is energy. Oh geez, what is it called? I'll skip that one for a sec. So there's clean energy and there's blockchain. Let me remember what ESG is. It's been a while since I looked that one up. So that's environmental, social, and governance companies, right? So it's basically anything that has to do with committing to sustainability, because there's a lot of incentives in that. And so our lenders really like investing in those. Usually they're VCs and things like that. They really like to invest in those types of those businesses, because they get write-offs and they get incentives for doing that. And then blockchain is anything, Jay, you would know more than that. Can you fill us in what blockchain is?
Yeah, blockchain is just a security, like encryption type thing, and the way stuff's calculated. So if you look at like Bitcoin and things like that, that's a form of blockchain.
Cool.
And so anything that has to do with like cyber, like security and securing and moving things through a system, they would want to buy, apparently.
Cool. Okay, awesome. Yeah, and again, any of these tech companies on both sides, they do need to have the technology built in-house. So like, let's say you found a company that specifically, they've used they're using a CRM, and that's what their business is built around. Like when you bring a technology into a business, it should be the technology supports the business, not the business runs off the technology, if that makes sense. So you should not build your business around a piece of tech. You should build your technology around your business. So when you see a company that is using other people's tech for their main revenue, if that tech changes, like let's say your entire business runs off of Facebook, and Facebook goes ahead and says, we're changing all the APIs for groups, which they just did, you just lost all of your integrations. You've just lost all of your things where you were cash flowing from marketing and posting and putting videos out. live through your group, and now you're dependent on Facebook's algorithm, Facebook's rules, instead of it the other way around. Like if I had built my own community on a different platform, that's not going to change the platform based on their needs. They're going to do it based on what I need. That's what it means by having the tech built in-house. Same criteria for finding number 2, and then 5 or more years. So those are the basic criteria for what we are looking for. And if you are looking for something different, that's awesome. We can, talk to you about that stuff. Right now, I know for myself and Marley, and Jay, maybe you're the same way. I know that we are looking for cash flow, right? As long as it's not something that goes against our values, I'll buy any business that cash flows and makes sense, right? That we can optimize, that we can elevate. Any business that does that, right? In these categories, those are the ones we prefer, but there's still opportunity for things that we didn't say. Like, I know people who are going after pet care businesses or anything that has to do with pets, because people treat their pets like small children, right? And they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their dog, and that's great, right? If that's your thing. But it's also a very good business opportunity. I don't have that interest in that, but hey, if there's a business that can be optimized and it's, whatever, making dog tags for someone, and it's going to be this killer thing, great, let's talk about it, right? So we're going to reshare some of this stuff so you can have a starting point. Like, let's say you're going to look for businesses that we can all partner on or that we can do deals on, right? That might be you come in, you do all the negotiations, and you get to the finish line and you just need the cash for it. And we come in with the cash, we work out what percentage who is doing what, because then there's the aftermath. Are we running the business? Are you running the business? We're more than happy to partner on stuff. It just becomes a conversation to see where we all stand. So that being said, does anyone have any questions on that buy box that they wanted to clarify?
I have a question about what's the correlation between revenue and EBITDA? Like, if it makes sense, like if the revenue is like 1 million and the EBITDA is like 750K, is that means that the remaining cash flow is 250,000? Or if we can have an example
Got
if
it.
we can have an example so we better understand the numbers, how the numbers work.
All right, let me pull that up and remember exactly. Jay, do you have a good idea on that, or
Yeah.
should I go ahead?
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. So revenue is how much they bring in total, right? That's everything's in there. And then when you do the EBITDA is revenue minus the cost of goods sold or any operational expenses, right? And so when you deduct all of that, that gets you to EBITDA. So, that's, and then from there you have where all of that starts to break out, right? And so that's where your taxes break out, your interest, your depreciation, if you own any kind of like property. So that's before you get any depreciation value and then amortization value. And so you can really go up after EBITDA once all that's calculated. So that's why cash flow is important. And cash flow generally comes off of the EBITDA number. It really doesn't matter. You can come off gross revenue or EBITDA, but cash flow is the it. You want to know the SDE. You want to know how much money is left after everything's paid. That's what you want to know.
Yeah, and to kind of go off that, yes, like literally all your expenses are paid, and this is the extra money that sits there that can either be reinvested into the business, or it could be put in your pocket, right? That's essentially the like you said, the net of that. What's the difference between the two? Is that kind of what you're asking that?
Yes, that was my question.
Cool. Yeah. So it's basically.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was trying to understand, like, is the revenue more important or the EBITDA? And like, if the EBITDA is it ever higher than the revenue or lower? Things like that. Try to understand the numbers. So if there is a lead coming in, to try to understand, yes, okay, that works for everyone, or it doesn't work.
Great question. So you're going to see, and we can actually look at one of the sites in a sec. Let's do that actually. Let's look at a site and see. I'm going to go to Biz by Sell. Let me share my screen. This will be a lot easier
Okay,
to
sounds
just
good.
walk through it instead.
And I will get muted now.
Oh, you're good, man. No, I love the questions. Keep them coming. All right, so
Okay.
we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna biz by sell. I live in Vermont, so it's gonna give me Vermont stuff, which is usually fun because people don't understand how to do their stuff. So, all right, let's say this ski shop right here.
Okay.
I know exactly where this is. All right, so you've got the asking price is 3.88, and the gross revenue, meaning the revenue, right? That's what we were talking about. That's all the money coming in. So if I make sales, all my sales coming in, right? That gross revenue might not include returns or refunds. So keep that in mind. There's a line item for refunds. So if half of your products are coming back or half of your services are being refunded, that's not going to show in that revenue number. That's going to show as a line item. So that's something to keep in mind as you start researching and doing this. This doesn't have enough data for us to understand. Let's see.
So gross revenue or revenue is everything, the first penny that comes in January 1st of the year, all the way to the last penny that's coming at the end of the year. That's it. Okay. Understand.
Exactly. 100%. All right. So here's a good
Sounds good.
one. These ones have cash flow and these ones have some sorry. So this one's saying cash flow. Now, depending on how the person looked at this, that might or might not be cash flow. But now we've got some other data points here that we can look at, right? Initially, our gross revenue is 260K. What they're saying is that they're earning in their pocket 100K. We don't know until we see the data whether
Okay.
that seller is including their own personal salary because they're standing at the they're standing behind driving the wheel behind this car, right? He might be making 100K, but he might actually be working the business. So that cash flow might not be true because you still have to replace the driver. That's really important to understand. If they don't take that away, if they don't, Jay, what is it called when they modify the EBITDA based on that? Isn't there a name for that?
There is. I forgot what it's called though.
Yeah, we'll have to. I can't pull up examples because they're all under NDA, but yeah. So like I can't remember, but basically at the end of the paperwork, if the broker or if the seller was doing it right, they would go ahead and add back in their salary for someone else to take over their spot, and then that would give you your true cash flow, right? So if I was going to sell my business and I'm putting 50K in my pocket for my salary, not my extra seller discretionary income or earnings, I would have to add that back in and say, okay, now you've got to pay someone 50K. So now you're really only your
Make
income,
50.
yeah, your net is only 50, right? So if I were to buy that
Yeah.
business and I have to pay someone 50K, then that's only worth $50,000. So for this one, cash flow might be 100 and they're asking 185, that's a 1.85 multiple because this is how much money is coming in and this is how much you would buy it for, 1.85 times.
Which they don't disclose that, but if it's a small business, probably that's what it is. Like it's the owner working the small business,
Right.
especially if they have like 1, 2 trucks. Now, if it's 10 trucks, it's different.
Yep. Exactly. And that's why we're aiming for businesses of a certain caliber or more, right?
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense.
And that's why you look at EBITDA versus and cash flow, right? Because EBITDA, like I said, is revenue minus cost of goods, right? So you automatically take that out. So I found a thing that talked about lemonade stands, which are real easy to do, right? So it's like $1,000 revenue. Each one had $200 in cost of goods. So each one of them technically made a gross revenue of $800. But one had an interest on debt of 15%. So when you broke it all down, the one that had the interest of debt of 15% had less cash flow than the one that had no interest. And so that's why EBITDA is important. You compare EBITDA to cash flow, and that tells you between what they report as EBITDA and what you get as cash flow, that tells you the cost of running that business as is. And you really need the EBITDA over a year, so it just shows, everything. But that shows you how much it will actually cost to run that business.
All right, and
So
let's look at that one. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm gonna pull
No,
this
no,
one back up. Go ahead.
it's good.
Yeah. That's why that one's weird to me. I don't know why it's flipped. It's not normally that way.
Right, right. So like this is earnings before that, and then this is, after everything, right? So it even says it right here. If you hover over this, right, starting with your net before tax, the profit. So this is even okay, so this doesn't take tax out. That's why, Jay.
Yeah.
Cash
So
flow
they
doesn't
flipped that. They flipped that. It really should be the other way. That should be the EBITDA and the cash flow should be 60.
Yeah, correct.
And actually the EBITDA is wrong too, because if you go back and read what he said, that's after the other one. Sorry.
that one,
If you
yeah.
look at cash flow, it says he was paid 70,000, then the cash flow is 170. So that's even wrong. So really the EBITDA is 170, and then the cash flow is whatever the average is after you take out taxes and earnings and all that.
Right, right. So this is not the net SD. This is not SDE. Cash flow and SDE are different, right? So I think that's what we're confusing because they've got like 8 different ways to say the same thing.
Yeah.
And so this is an example on that just popped up. So right, this one is saying that in order to calculate cash flow, it's for this example, ignore the 185. This is just a straight up example. It's like, so you've got your net before you pay taxes. That's what your profits are before taxes. You're going to add back any payments that the owner took, any interest that you had to pay, any depreciation of assets, right? So you add all that back, and this is basically, this is correct, Jay, I think. So EBITDA is talking about adding in the depreciation, the taxes, and the interest, right? You're subtracting that from the 100, while the 100 is basically your expenses from your revenue. So this person is spending 160K on revenue or on expenses, and they're getting a cash flow of 100K. Then they're going to pay themselves, they're going to pay any interest, and they're going to pay for any depreciation of assets, and that's going to bring them down to 60K. So they're spending $40,000 on their personal take home and any other pieces that they're doing. Then the actual net before anything else is this EBITDA. So it's kind of a convoluted, and we can really break this down in one of our next, I think in our next Zooms, to make sure I don't confuse anyone too much. But your goal to really understand is EBITDA is a key factor, the asking price is a key factor, and the gross and the net cash flow is a really key factor. So, but really, if you look at EBITDA and the asking price, if there's a huge disparity based on the industry, then it's not going to make any sense, right? And then we can talk about every industry has a different EBITDA based on the, like, for instance, the SaaS companies. The average SaaS company is anywhere between 5 and 8 multiple, right? So times the value. So if I have revenue of $100,000, I should be buying that business for somewhere around $500,000 if it was functioning in a certain way. The one that Jay, Marley, and myself are buying, because of the messiness of that business, that is a 1.3 multiple, meaning that we're paying $800,000 for a business that brings in $1 million. And so we are able to optimize that business and fix it, but we have the skills to do so. And so we're going to spend an entire day, I think next time, talking about all this stuff, and we will go there. But yeah, your key thing is to really just look at this and make sure that there's no, like, when you get and you request, like, you're going to use the contact form and make a request they're going to send you an NDA, meaning a non-disclosure agreement. They're going to ask you to sign that. You're going to sign for anyone that you bring into this, right? So like, you're going to sign for us if you want us to look at it, right? And you're going to be responsible for that. So you've got to understand, like, whoever you show it to, it's got to be for the greater good of your business and what you're doing. Otherwise, you're responsible if anything leaks out, something like that. So for us, we're going to make an agreement together that will be okay, that we're going to talk about it. But you'll get this report, usually called a CIM, CIM, and I'm going to look up what CIM stands for again, because I always forget it. Which is, oh man, Jay, do you remember? Confidential Information Memorandum. Okay, so it's basically confidential info
Oh, yeah.
that you, yeah. So you're gonna get that CIM, and it's gonna have all the numbers. And a lot of times, a lot of the larger businesses, they're not going to show you anything without proof of funds. So it's kind of you're going to get red tape from that person. That's why you start building relationships with brokers so you can get past those walls and say, hey, I've got people I'm buying with who have the experience, who have the clout, and I'm finding the deals and I'm a partner in that. And I want to, I want to get into this as well. So there's a lot of brokers that won't talk to you because they think you're just a connector where you're just wholesaling the deal that you're finding that you're doing the work on, which isn't like it could be that, right? If you need the cash now and you want to get paid out, and we'll happily pay you for that. If you want to partner in it, we'll figure out a way that we can do stuff together. We just have to figure out what roles everyone plays to do that. Did that answer the question that you started with in the beginning?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was a long
It's
way to get there.
it's gonna take some time for me to understand, because I think that like not everyone is gonna put the real numbers.
Right.
So but pretty much, yeah, I understand.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna wrap up in a minute. I'm gonna assign a little bit of homework again, so that everyone has exactly what they need moving forward, and to come back next week with some more experience, right? Because we can talk about this and you can listen and do nothing for the next week, or we can assign stuff and you can actually start learning instead of and putting stuff to work. Because the only way you're going to start getting out there and talking to people is by getting out there and talking to people and doing that. So what the homework for this week is it's similar to what you did last week. You were identifying. We gave you a list, I believe, of somewhere between 600 and 800 companies or brokerage websites per se that are for acquisitions and mergers, for literally finding businesses out on the market that are either private sales or public sales. These are just the ones that someone went to a business broker or someone who does sales and said, hey, help me sell my business. There are millions more that are people are just sitting on and they're just going to close it down. So if you want to focus more on those businesses, it's a lot more work, but there's a lot more potential for creative deals. And almost every deal can have a creative component, right? Businesses are a little different than any type of real estate. Real estate sellers are not really like keen on doing as much creative sometimes because they're just, Tony and Lisa down the road. They're not aware of the fact that this is a business and they can get creative with those ways. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to, if you haven't already done it, which I hope you did already, fill up your schedule and start networking with those people. There is that list that we sent you in that last email. If you don't have it, it'll come out in the next email as well as a link, and it'll be in there for you to start reaching out. What I'm also going to add into there is a basic kind of like a template of sorts, so you can start reaching out. Like when you're doing things on Biz Buy Sell, it's pretty easy to just like say I'm interested and and go from there. But a lot of times brokers will put up a red flag. They don't want tire kickers. They don't want people who are not going to actually purchase. Right now you're learning, so if you mess up a connection here and there, it's not a big deal. Even if you're in the real industry like full time and you mess up a connection here and there, it's not that big of a deal because it looks like you did something wrong as long as you're not trying to hurt anyone. But you're new at it, and just say, listen, I'm new to this. I'm getting into this world. And usually people are pretty good humans. So just keep that in mind. Like if you share that you're new, they usually give you a little bit of a break. But they want to make sure you're serious, not just new, right? So we'll give you a little bit of that, and we'll give you a template for working with that. And then we'll also give you a very basic script, at least what questions to ask. But in our next meeting, we're really going to talk about how to have those real conversations and how to leverage those connections with those brokers to do the next thing, because they've got a lot of listings in their pocket that just have not gotten out, or the seller's not ready to sell, or they're getting divorced and they don't want it publicly blasted out there. So there's a lot of different opportunities, just like a realtor has opportunities behind the curtain. But you want to make sure you make those connections and start building rapport with all of these brokers to really understand. And again, the better deals are going to come from people who are not going to a broker. But also remember, the brokers are there to make a sale. So they're not really there for your best interest, even though like they're gonna help you out to an extent. Like some of them might even mentor you and we'll talk about that next week about like a broker that we've met that did something similar. Actually, the guy Rob, who we're working with on this deal, he was very mentorish, right? It didn't come. Our conversation started off very wrong, and I'll tell you all about that next time.
but you really want to build relationships and be true and be honest and be straightforward with people and build rapport. So I really hope everyone enjoyed being here today, and we really appreciate you guys coming on. What I'll do is I will go ahead and share this out in the email. I'll also share it out in any groups that we're in, probably on my page. If you all would be willing to also share, I mean, that would be the biggest thing, to just help each other out, help, get more people in here. I'll get on top of making sure I'm marketing this a little bit better so that we have more people show up. But I do know that this is going to be a really great opportunity. We're going to do about 4 more of these just to get this process going, and we're going to start onboarding people and building out a little deal flow system so that you can all get experience, learn, get some feedback on what you're doing, and really just move forward with buying some businesses and learning about it. So thank you all for coming out, and we really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Yeah, you do. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.